Alright, so this is a video about the Pentivium. The image behind me here, forgive the green screen, it's of poor quality, is a process that I developed while living in Yellowstone National Park after learning about the classical liberal arts, the trivium and quadrivium. That's not what we're talking about in this video, though. I'm not going to really cover any of the trivium and quadrivium in this video. This is surely going to be about the Pentivium. So this is about the 5 spiritual arts of purification, something that Carl Jung advocated for in his book, The Practice of Psychotherapy. In chapter 9, he covers the entire subject of purification. Now, that isn't to say that there's more to the subject. Obviously, I've gone over that in my book called The Pentivium, in which I go over the different aspects of purification, and there's, of course, a plethora that could be gone over in that subject alone. Then there is the accumulation stage, which is where you would accumulate self-knowledge, knowledge of self, because as we all know, the more you know about yourself, and the more you know who you are, the less power others have over you. And then you apply the knowledge of self by being the change that you want to see in the world, as it were. This then leads to a balanced stage wherein we gestate. This also is a stage of balancing the left and right hemispheres, the head and the heart, masculine and feminine, but it's also a balance in our lives as far as work and play or celebration. This should be considered a stage of celebration and gestation, sleep, rest, as well as work and play. And then we get to the final stage here, which is play, which could also be considered the stage of submission, submitting to our higher self, our vocation, our really the thing that we're here for, the thing that we've been put here to do. And this is an individual thing that has to be discovered for every individual. And this is an integral process, meaning that every stage of this is uh, interactive. Like, in order to purify properly, we have to be willing to play in the first place. You have to be willing. The will aspect of this, the play aspect of this, is like the first step, really, but it's also the last step. So, in a sense, it's like you have to actually have the wherewithal to know that this is something to be done in order for it to be something that you're doing. And in that sense, it's like you have to have the eyes to see in order to have the wherewithal to even think to do something like this, because nobody's just gonna, like, of their own volition, put themselves through this kind of a process. You have to sort of know that there's a higher calling to human life than merely being a cog in a machine. And this ultimately is about maintaining, amplifying, and concentrating sovereignty in the individual. That's why sovereignty is the sort of the essence, the quintessence of this process. Now, purification is consisting of, like, meditation, things like physical exercise, going into nature, and things like fasting that purify the body, mind, and spirit. And that's something for each of us to sort of explore and experience. This is also inherently going to accumulate knowledge. Just by purifying ourselves, we accumulate self-knowledge in this way. And in order to properly apply that knowledge, there has to be a certain amount of balance. So the balance and application are kind of intertwined. When we apply ourselves, we need to then gestate and sort of transcribe what we've learned into our minds so that we can then cycle this through. It's a cycle. And really that's what enlightenment is. It's a cyclical sort of process. It's a continuum. And so that's what this really is supposed to designate or show, is that it's a continuous process. And then when it comes to play, eventually play and application become one and the same, as well as accumulation and pure. The whole thing becomes an act of playfulness with life, that we are continually in a process of playing life by doing this process. And in effect, submitting to our sovereignty by willfully governing ourselves. The essence of this is to become self-governing individuals. This is why it's a spiritual art process, because the spirit is being mastered here, not just the mind or the understanding of matter, but really the soul, the whole being of the human psyche is being understood and mastered in this process.